Welcome everyone to episode 13 of 30 Minutes Robotic Milking Edition. The first episode of 2022. Hard to believe that 1 year went by since we started having these monthly discussions where we learn from dairy producers using robotic milking systems so they can teach us a lot using systems day in and day out and how it's working for them. I'm your host, Marcia Andrus, dairy science professor and extension specialist at the University of Minnesota in St. Paul. With us today, we also have your co-host, Jim Sulfur, dairy extension educator at the St. Cloud Regional Office. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Marcia, and everybody who's tuned in today.
Thank you.
Welcome to cold Minnesota.
Yes, it's minus 12 this morning. Fahrenheit, that is. So just a couple of housekeeping items. If you're watching this episode as a recording on YouTube, please register next time at z.umn.edu/30MINRM in order to get your Zoom link to attend the live webinar discussion. Also, I would like to ask you all to use the Q&A box, not the chat box, please, because Jim and I are not monitoring the chat box. So please enter your questions or comments in the Q&A box that you can find on the bottom of your screen. And then Jim or I will read the question on your behalf and the producer will answer for us. It's my pleasure to now invite our dairy producer guest to join us. And today we have a dairy producer from Iowa, Lely, who is going to tell us about his operation with 12 robots in Iowa. Hi, Lely, how are you? Please join us.
There.
Yes, technology is working.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I don't do the best at
no, we make it work the other day, and I'm glad it's working. So thank you for being here, Lee, taking the time to talk with us today. It's like I told you, it's a conversation about your farm, and then we answer questions. So I'll start with your first slide, and then I'll move them for you, and I'll disappear now and let you take over from there. So thank you for being here.
Okay. First of all, it was minus 14 here in Iowa this morning, so I don't think we're far enough south. This what we're looking at here is the north end of our dairy facility. This is the end that we added on when we put the robots in. I'm going to give you a quick background on our dairy. My wife and I own it. We have 2 children, but neither one of them are going to farm. They're in their right at 40 years old, and they're in they're in the fashion world. We started with 29 cows back in 79 with buckets. 1980, we actually went to 47 cows in a pipeline. 93 went to a parlor with 300 cows. 2007, 700 cows. And then in 2018 is when we put the robots in. We did that for multiple reasons. One was our parlor was 25 years old. We also was a labor issue. In our area, it's very competitive labor. And probably one of the biggest reasons was the fact that this dairy will be sold someday. And I needed to have some value. We felt that going with robots would give us the most value. When in 18, we did go to the robots. It did allow us to go up 100 cows. So we went from 700 to 800, about 700 milking all the time. It is a retrofit, as I said. We added on. It turned out great. I worked with GPS Consulting, and they work with our nutrition. And 17, he had sent me to a meeting that Lely had on, and that's where I learned about the design and how it would work for us. And probably the support from GPS was huge. We also went to tunnel ventilation at the same time, being we were adding on the end of the barn. In the middle, you can see the tankers, though that's where the milk room is. And so that milk room on the back side, there's actually a hallway. So the two barns are connected. So you can walk from barn to barn without coming outside. Turned out actually really well. We do, as you can see, we do direct ship. We do have a chiller, so our milk is loaded directly on the tankers. We do truck our own milk. We have since 2007. Real close, it's a cheese plant right up the road, 16 miles, very convenient. And the second layout here, this is how the barn looks on the inside. The robots are all to the north end. And as you can see, there's 3 robots per pen. And that design is classified as the L shape. And it's 2 robots on the outside, 1 in the center. The reason you go with this design is that center robot allows you to milk the sort pen in the back. They can milk themselves. So that robot is either milking cows in the big group or in the sort pen. 180 cows per pen. I guess I didn't go over that. There is 180 cows per pen, including the sort pen of each one. And then right down in the center of the big barns, right there, that's where we have the foot baths. We designed them there, and you bring the cows down an angle, and they go through twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they go through 2 times on that given day. Chase them down through it, and we chase them back up. The reason we do it that way, that is when we put sand in. And it's very convenient to do it all at one time. The foot baths are wide enough that the cows can walk through 3 at a time. We did see some barns where they're set up to go single file, but you can imagine how long that would take at 180 cows. Of the pens there, that, like I said, there's 4 different pens. One pen is a heifer pen. That's one way at the top. And the second pen down from that is roughly half heifers, half smaller milk cows. And then the other barn are our mature cows. In the lower barn there, the heifer barn, we do use 19 milliliter inflations. And in the upper barn, we use 21. Seems to work real well, and that's the way we've been for at least 2 years. This is a slide between, so you can actually see how they sit. 2 robots on the side there, that's the outside of the building. That area right in the center, that's our waiting room, we call it. It's where the cows like to hang out. You can't see it, but right behind that cow to the right is a water tank. And right here is a good picture to look at the different feed lines. We do have 3 different feeds that we feed in the robots. We feed a low pellet, which is corn gluten feed. We feed a high pellet, which is high in energy. And we do feed a liquid product from QLF, molasses. The corn gluten pellet is fed at 4 pounds each per cow, and the molasses product is fed at 2.5 pounds per day. That's constant for every cow. The only pellet that varies is pellet A, which is our high energy pellet. A 100-pound cow will get 4 pounds of that, and then from there it goes up. So a 100-pound cow would get a total of 4 pounds of corn gluten pellets, 4 pounds of high pellet, and 2.5 pounds of molasses for a 10.5 pound feeding rate. One of the things we did notice is some of the dairies went to, they did not make this waiting area big enough. We did make ours a little bit bigger to accommodate the cows. Okay, in the next slide, we're standing right down by the robots now looking south, and that's how the pens look. They're about 400 feet long, the barns. Out there in the big groups, there's about 130 stalls, and then 15 stalls in the sort pen. So that accommodates the 180 for each pen. If you look up to the right there, you can see fans hanging. Those are circulating fans that we had before we put tunnel ventilation in. The reason we left those in the summer, instead of putting baffles in like most dairies do to keep the air movement down low, we turn those fans on, and they do a better job of circulating the air in the summer in connection with our tunnel. We feed, as you can look at the PMR there, we feed once a day. We do feed at noon, which is odd. Most dairies feed in the morning, I realize. We switched to noon because we can manage it better. We can look at the feed, and if they're running short, mix an hour earlier. If they're running long, we can wait an hour. And that's how we try to manage our total feed waste. It's worked really well. Let's see. Yeah, now we're looking at the Juno up there. We do have 2 Junos, 1 in each barn. They go through every 4 hours and push the feed up. Originally, we had 1 Juno. It's supposed to be able to go from barn to barn. There's a 9% elevation between the 2 barns. And even though the robot Juno is supposed to be able to do a 13%, we had trouble with it on the 9. So now we actually have 1 robot or Juno for each barn. Down in the right, that is a view of the catch pen in the back. There's 15 stalls back there. It's a very important part of the robot barn. First of all, it's where we put our fresh cows. When we bring up fresh cows, we put them back there, and we leave a mature cow will be in there about 5-6 days till they learn the robot again. A heifer might be in there anywhere from 10 to 20 days, depending how long it takes to get her going through on a regular time schedule. The sort pen with the sort gates, we use that for hoof trimming, herd health, vaccinating, breeding. All failed cows are sorted back there for cow fails. What it does, it keeps us out of the big pens a lot, so we're not disturbing the main herds. Yeah, that's pretty much what I got on the sort pens. I don't have too much else other than if questions. I'd rather just have questions about specifics that you'd like.
Thank you so much for this overview. Very interesting. And if you don't mind sharing with us, Lee, like in general, your metrics for like production per cow, in general, what's normally your average production per cow and somatic cell counts, maybe fat and protein, not what maybe what happened. You and I discussed the situation that happened, but in general,
Yep.
what was normally your production and cell counts
Yep.
and things like that?
Yeah, for the last year, we've run right around 100 pounds. We've jumped up and down. We run a 4-2 test and about a 3-2 protein. So we get a lot of solids. Back in, it'd been over a year ago. A year ago last fall, we had to switch to silica sand for a short period of time because our main source of sand was interrupted while they were dredging. Well, later we got into the spring, we didn't realize that we started having some cell count issues last spring. And what we found out is we had damaged the teat ends a little bit with the silica sand. It's finer. We didn't really pick up on this. And our cell count all last spring and summer kept creeping up. And we did like typical dairymen. We'd been on iodine for 20, probably 30 years, but we tried a different teat dip and we were mixing 2 dips. And there was a problem with that. When it was getting out to the teat end, it wasn't strong enough. And then we switched to another teat dip. Well, anyway, come fall, I decided enough was enough. We switched back to iodine and our numbers have come way down. We've been on a regular sand for a year now. But the other problem was because we had the cell count issue, we ended up selling about 30, maybe even more cows than we planned on.
Wow.
We only run a 74% heifer rate in our heifers to cows, which means we have enough replacements when things are going right. We do not have enough replacements when you have a bump. So we're about 30 cows short. So here in December, we decided to replace, jump back up. because of the price of milk looking good going forward. We brought in some cattle. We had some haylage. It wasn't perfect right then. Anyway, a combination over a 10-day window, we dropped 15 pounds.
Wow.
We dropped 30 to 85 pounds.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It can happen. It's a
And
farm. Just
unbelievable stressful. First
oh,
biggest drop we had in 15 years.
that's so sad to hear that, Lee. I
Yep.
hope you're really getting out of it.
Yeah, they're coming out of it. The ruminations dropped from 550 down to about 440, which is awful.
Wow.
Rumination is back to normal.
Good.
We're currently at 96 pounds.
Good.
We're
I'm glad.
confident we'll get the rest back, but it was extremely stressful 2 weeks here since Christmas.
That's for sure. So 2 lessons learned here, guys. Very important to keep in mind. All this a changing sand, what it can do. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So attention to the details, right? It's very difficult to be a dairy farmer. That's why I'm not one, Lee. It's too many things to control.
I
have enough hard time with my students.
Yeah. Any one thing can tip you. Any one thing can
definitely
change the momentum.
Definitely can change the whole dynamics of a farm. Very good
That's
points.
correct.
Thank you for making those points. So it's a warning for a lot of the producers maybe attending this, that those are important things. Jim, looks like there are a lot of questions coming in here. Let's get started with the first one there, if you can help me out, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah, Lee, you seem to be a really progressive producer and made a lot of changes. So there's a question. Have you ever considered automated feeding, and maybe your thoughts on why you would consider it, or maybe why you've avoided it?
We didn't look at the feeding part of it because of where our bunkers are located and our feed supply, also where our facility sits. I don't have a good place to set up a feeding station. And plus we do have heifer farms. I would need the mixers and stuff to feed our heifers, raise all of our own heifers. We haven't really looked at it. It would be a good fit for us yet.
Okay, makes sense. Clarification question here about your food baths. Can you show or tell us again where the food bath is located and what do you use in it? What do you put in the food bath?
Okay. Yeah, the foot bath is, like I said, right down in the center of them 2 barns. And we have gates. There's 3 cross areas there. There's one by the water tank and one that was in the center where the slats are, and then one on the other side. 2 of them have gates across, so they have to walk through the foot bath. And so they walk through it, going down at an angle. We push them all, say, to the south end. Then we put sand in the north. As soon as we get done there, we back out. They chase the cows clear through it again to the north. So that's their second trip through the foot bath. And then we put sand into the south. And we always try to start that right when the robots shut down to wash. We try to disturb the cows the least we can. We do realize we still disturb them too much. And
you're using those portable food baths. How long are they? I mean, is the whole length of that?
No, these are poured in place. There's a
poured in
concrete
place.
Yeah, these are, they're permanent. They're there and they have a 6-inch drain on them, and we can pull them and they just dump right there in the pit when we're done.
Okay.
And that's it. And then the cows walk through them the rest of the time.
So is it hard to clean then? I mean, you go manually and clean these, or does it get full of manure or anything?
No, they're not that hard to clean. Yeah, there is manure does again. They clean them once a day with scraper. They scrape them out and they walk through. We have to clean our cross areas by hand anyway.
Sure. Okay.
So they just quick clean it. There's also a water tank right there, and they use that water tank. They'll just dip a bucket in to quick flush that.
Okay.
Okay.
And then
the big important thing was to have a 6-inch drain, a big drain, so that when you unplug it, that water from the foot bath rushes out and will carry a lot of the solids with it.
I got you. And did you say what you use? Sorry, maybe I missed what you use.
We use
copper sulfate. Okay.
Yeah, we use copper sulfate 3 times, and then we use zinc sulfate once. So
okay.
3 times in a row we'll use copper, and then the 4th time we'll use zinc.
Okay, got you. Okay, good. Thank you for the clarification. Jim.
Yeah, there's a question here, Lee, about your molasses that you're feeding 2.5 pounds per cow per day. Is there any issue with that? I assume it's mucking up the feed bowl or combining with feed, or have you had pretty good luck with that?
We generally have good luck with it. Now, I'll tell you, when you have an issue like we had with this winter dysentery going through when the cows dropped, they got mucked up because the cows aren't aggressive enough to clean it up.
Mm.
But the way we have it designed, the hose, it dumps it on top of the pellets. It's kind of running on the pellets. So generally the bowl itself, it's pretty easy to clean. If we have to clean anything out, the molasses is on the pellet.
Okay, good. A question here about what was your average daily production per cow before you moved into robots?
We were running about 92 pounds, 94 sometimes, but we picked a lot up in the summer, but see, that could be because of the tunnel ventilation.
Mm.
We always have had a high producing herd. Our big thing was when we went to robots, we were afraid we might drop.
Right.
But we did come up a little bit. We did gain components, which everyone says you usually go the other way.
Right. Oh.
But for some reason, we did gain some components.
That's good. That's interesting. And did you mention how many milkings per day average you have?
Yeah, we're currently 2.9 today.
2.9,
Normally
okay.
we run about 3, but when it's
Mhm.
cold, they'll drop a little bit. But
Okay.
we like to run between 2.8 and 3.
Mm-hmm. Good. Jim?
What was your saving in labor? So you can discuss your labor force when you install
Mhm.
robots, how much labor per FTE to take care of 800 cows. So you just want to describe your labor situation a little bit?
Yeah, before we put the robots in, we were running 15 employees total on the farm. And you have to remember, we truck our own milk, pump our own manure, do all of our own crops. So after we put the robots in, we did let 5 employees, we reduced by 5, we dropped to 10, but we only dropped to 10 for about 6 months. That was a little too light. So we're currently at 11 employees. We have 4 less than we did originally. Now, that was 3 years ago. Because of the price of labor, my actual labor cost is probably almost back to where I was.
Mm. Okay. So 4 less employees, but you also added 100 cows, correct? And,
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Can I ask a follow-up question, just a personal
Mhm.
question? Your quality of labor, when you hired that extra person back, was it an old employee? Is it easier to find labor? Harder? What type of employee are you finding if you hire some more in the future? Expand a little bit on that labor piece from a quality and the kind of people you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely we have to go with a different quality person. Before we just had routine milkers or who I let go. I tried to have some of them stay and we train them, but they just weren't interested in staying because of learning about the robots, using the computer. So you're right, you have to up your quality a little bit. That's probably part of our cost increase. One thing I will say, and I don't want to make this sound poor, but the quality of people, the people I get to work with today, I'm probably more content with. They're interested in dairy farming, they're interested in robots, they're interested in us moving forward. Where most of the people I let go were just pretty much interested in the paycheck.
Makes sense, right? It takes a different type of person to be interested in technology, understanding how to use it, and they're more excited about it. Maybe it's kind of a new thing, and yeah, that
But
makes
it's
a lot
still
of sense.
very hard to find employees. We're
I bet.
struggling. We currently are going to need a calf manager here in a couple months. And,
Oh, okay.
just not looking forward to that.
Do you guys have automatic feeders for the calves? No.
Yes.
Oh, you
we
do? Okay. And
Yep. We've had them for 12 years.
Okay. And pretty much happy with them, or?
Yeah, we learned a lot. The biggest thing is you got to have more than one barn. We currently have 3 barns, and you got to do an all in, all out. You got to be real diligent on after each group being empty.
Okay, gotcha. Very good tip there too. I have one more question for the audience here about culling. Did you have to cull lots of cows because you transitioned from conventional to robots?
Not a lot. We did have to call some. We probably called the first year maybe 25 head, 30, and the second year another 30. To do over again, I'd have probably called the whole 60 the first year, which would have been not quite 10%, but and our biggest number one problem was the rear teats crisscrossing.
Yep.
That's the number one reason we sold cows.
Makes sense. Jim?
One other question. Do you believe you've observed an improvement in cow longevity, less injuries? Can you just comment on cow health since you've installed robots, obviously?
Yeah, we definitely have better health. Our vet bill is actually, I did look at it the first year after we started, and we did run about $1,000 per month less. And it had to do with, I think we actually had less DAs, we had less culls from like where they fell and maybe injured their leg. And most of that has to do is when you're constantly moving those cows back and forth to the holding pen. When you get one in that's in heat, they get the rest of the herd all worked up. Yeah, we definitely seen it. Our cows are bigger. They definitely have gained weight. And they're quiet. They are unbelievable quiet, which I'm sure all of you know.
So reproduction, we didn't talk much about it. Are you happy with your pregnancy rates? Are you using mostly activity or are you doing synchronization?
Yeah, I didn't mention anything about repro. We tried using the activity and stuff. We actually had activity collars and stuff in rumination before we went to robots.
Okay. So
we had worked with them. We had long time ago learned they help a lot, but we still do timed breeding too. Okay. To really get them bred the way we want, we need to do everything at our disposal.
Do you do double off sync or what are you using?
Yes.
Okay. So you probably have good preg rates from that too. It's a good protocol, I guess. Jim, do you have? I don't have open questions here, but there's something else you want to focus on. Oh, yeah, one thing I forgot to talk. Sorry, go ahead. I'll shut up.
No, go ahead.
No, I just forgot to ask Lee about heifer training. If he does anything prior to calving, if the heifers are trained in any shape or form, do you have any like feeders in the dry pens, anything like that trains the heifers, or you just train them after they can't come to the robot barn?
We're currently training them just after they calve and put them up in the barn. We've talked, a good friend of mine, he has one of the feeders. It depends on the day. One day he tells them it's great, next day he's not sure. You know, I do think they help. The problem is we don't know if we got to be up there anyway in those pens. We don't know if it's worth our investment right now to put one in or not. Okay. I know some people swear by them. I do know I read an article where one of the robot herds, they had it down there and the heifers went through the feeder good. Them are the ones they put in their robot barn. The ones that don't, they put in their parlor barn, which made perfect sense.
Right. That's a dairy that we had. We had them participate on this session a few months ago, and they have that luxury, so to speak. Not every dairy has that luxury. So Jim, sorry, go ahead for your last question. I think we're getting close to the end here. So one last question before I stop the recording.
Oh, one more question about labor. How many hours do you man your robot barn? And then what's your fetching procedure? Do you fetch, because you're a little bigger barn, do you fetch fetching procedure on heifers, non-heifers, twice a day, multiple times? Just what's your fetching practices?
We are probably strong on fetching because we have to have people in the barn. We do have people in the barn 24 hours a day. One person is at night. That's so they can push the fresh cows through. Our night people are the ones that keep the robot rooms clean. We also, we need somebody around there for the critical calls at night. We don't need the night calls going out and someone has to come in. Oh gosh, wow. What was the other part of this question, I guess?
Just really, how often do you fetch then, like fresh heifers and fresh cows?
Yeah. We're currently fetching about 5 times a day. We fetch pretty much twice during the day and then kind of once in the middle of the night, and then right at that 5 o'clock morning and night we fetch. So it's about 5 times. I don't like to go in and fetch more than 6 cows at a time. So if we happen to have 10 on the list, then they'll probably do a fetch and then maybe 2 hours later jump in and see if those other cows went through. We feel that doing small fetches more often is more efficient because it disturbs the herd less.
Okay, and it's easy to find them? I know you have a pen with 180 cows. They don't have issues finding them. Did you ever think about getting those location devices, location services, things that help you find cows a little easier?
Yeah, we've been thinking about it, but I'll be honest, most of my guys are pretty good dairymen, and they learn what these cows are, and they know these cows seem to live in the same part of the barn, and you'll find out when you're fetching similar cows frequent.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to stop the recording now. I appreciate your participation. We have one more question we'll address in a minute here, but I want to thank Lee for joining us today. Thank you for taking the time. I want to thank all of you who attended live, and this will be a recording will be posted for those of you that couldn't be here, or if you want to watch it again. So thank you again for being here. Appreciate your participation, and now see you again for episode 14 on February 17.